Caspian Rabot wasn't used to this. Typically, when he sat at a bar and drank himself into a stupor, the place was a seedy hole in the wall, the type of place where illegal transactions were the norm, a place where he could disappear into the back wall and no one would give him another glance. But this wasn't that place. The bar was too clean, too sanitary for his likes. An automated bartender stood behind the polished wood surface separating them, waiting to take Cass's next order. When he'd come down to the concourse to get away from it all, he'd hoped he'd be able to find a place to hide out for a couple of hours until he could get his head straight. But staring into the yellow eyes of the bartender as it glared back, he couldn't help but wonder if the bartender himself was a deterrent, as if he'd been placed there to make the patrons uncomfortable and keep them from overstaying their welcome. Perhaps that was how the Coalition kept their officers from getting drunk all the time. Back when he'd still been one, he'd never ventured in a place like this. It wasn't until after his arrest, parole, and escape/exile before he started frequenting imbibing establishments. And sure, maybe the Sargan Commonwealth wasn't the safest place in the galaxy, and you had to carry a blaster on your person at all times. But they knew how to set up a bar and mix a drink. "This tastes a little weak," he remarked, hoping to give the machine something to do. "I apologize, sir. Would you like me to fix you another? I can adjust. Just pour another shot in this one, will you?" Cass pushed the small glass away from him. "Yes, sir." Cass glanced around the rest of the bar. It was empty, which didn't surprise him. These were duty hours, after all. He wouldn't expect a bunch of Coalition officers to be skipping work to day drink. It wasn't their style. And that was fine with him. It was a good thing Admiral Sangvi had called him into his office early in the day. Because after his news, Cass needed something strong, and he didn't want to have to push through a throng of people to get it. "There you go, sir," the machine said, pushing the drink back toward him. Cass had been too distracted to watch and see if he had added anything substantial to the glass or not. He picked it up and gave it a swirl before knocking the contents back into his throat, nearly coughing on the burn. "Better?" Cass cleared his throat as the warmth traveled down his esophagus, where it disappeared into the acid of his stomach. "Yeah. One more, just like that." "I'm sorry, sir. You have reached your daily allotment. You may return for another in 17 hours, 15 minutes. The bartender picked up the empty glass, and it disappeared below the other side of the bar. He should have expected this. "Fine. Then I'll take a bottle for the road." Cass glanced up to the hundreds of bottles of liquid perched on shelves behind the bartender, each varying in color and label. Alcohol from all over the Coalition. "I'm sorry, sir," the machine repeated, "but bottles are only available for ranking officers." "What if I said I used to be a lieutenant commander? Would that make any difference?" Cass asked, slightly slurring the words. "Only current ranking officers may access alcohol stores." The machine's eyes blinked on and off once, an indication Cass's question had now been reported somewhere. Ever since he'd found and modified his robotic traveling companion box, he'd become accustomed to their mannerisms. Where most humans saw a machine's eyes go out momentarily, Cass knew it was the signal that something inappropriate had happened, or was about to happen, and someone needed to be notified. He grumbled, wishing Box were here at the moment. He could shove right past the bartender and grab as many bottles as he wanted, or at least push him out of the way long enough for Cass to grab a firebrand or scorb. "Is there anything else I can do for you today, sir?" the bartender asked. Cass stood, his legs wobbling under him as he pushed himself off the stool. "I guess not," he replied, preparing to reach over to pay. He withdrew his hand at the last moment, remembering where he was. The Coalition worked without money. Service is its own reward. The mantra had been drilled into his head from the academy. But experiencing life outside the Coalition had shown him a different reality, one where people were motivated by money and greed and the accumulation of goods.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.